Yeah. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I hope I'm audible. Um, uh, the network that my system is detecting right now is a little weak. So, just in case the class stops in the middle or you are facing any problem with the audio or the video, I would request that one of you please unmute and let me know about it so that uh, I'm aware that there is such a problem that is existing, right? Hopefully, for now, you will be able to hear me and listen and view the slides as well, right? So we can just begin with the class. I'll just share my screen for that. Yes. So, good afternoon, everybody. This is one of the previous year assignment session for week 4 lectures. That is your final week for this particular course. That is Introduction to Professional Scientific Communication. I am one of the course TAs. I am Arveen Kaur, and currently I'm a PhD scholar at Department of Biological Sciences and Bioengineering at IIT Kanpur. I am also a professor of, I am a student of Professor S. Ganesh. I'm so sorry for that. Right. What we have been doing in these sessions is essentially going over the kind of questions that have previously been posed for the current week that we are discussing, right? So that it will be more of a practice session for you. Both for helping you solve this year's assessment as well as a practice for your examinations, right? Because there are similar kind of questions that are generally asked over there as well, right? So what we are doing over here is we are going through the I'll just admit people. Yeah. So we are going through the course and we are going through the rationale that is behind solving some particular questions. And even if the question is framed differently, the rationale is more or less going to be similar, right? So these sessions will actually help you in your assessments and your examination, right? Having said that, since it is week 4 of this session, I hope that you guys have attended the previous views. So we'll just cut it short. We'll just start with the question answers itself. Yeah. So what I'll do in this session is I do not have extra the lecture session planned for today. I just have the PYQs. So what we are going to do is I will read the question. I will read the options. I will give you some time to ponder upon the options and then we'll discuss the answer side by side. Right? So, question number 1 is which of the following choices accurately describes the role of the journal editors who handle research papers submitted for review? Is it confidentiality or professionalism or data protection or all of these? Right? It has more to do with journal editors and what is the kind of role that these journal editors actually have, right? Uh, so, yeah. So the answer for this one is all of these, right? So journal editors, who are these people? These are basically which are the journals we are talking about first of all. So whenever there is some scientific study that is done, right, we generally publish those studies or send them those studies to some specific journals that basically publish those kinds of studies in general so that the general scientific community and specifically the scientific community that works on similar areas can actually read and review and access that research, right? and if possible, build up on that research, right? So that it can eventually lead to some translational good for the humans, for agriculture, for some sustainability, etc., right? So those basically journals are could be different depending upon what is the kind of research we are wanting to publish, right? So there are some broad spectrum journals such as Nature, Science, which have a spectra of things that they publish about. Then there are some very, you know, uh, narrowed down journals such as AACR, which is like solely for cancer research articles, right? Epilepsia, which is for like epilepsy related research articles. Human molecular genetics, which has generally it publishes paper that has something to do with the genetic modulations, understanding some genetic disease, characterization of some genetic model, etc., right? Accordingly, there are different kinds of journals, and there are multiple roles that individuals have in a journal, right? One of the roles is the editor, right? So, editor is actually the first person who will review your manuscript, right? So, this person, once we are submitting our manuscript to a journal, this is a manuscript will go to the editor, and the editor will decide whether it is suitable for this journal or not, right? And if it is suitable, the editor will further pass it on to reviewers who are, maybe experts in those areas, so that they can, look at the critical technical details more carefully, right? So the editor is the person who is getting our manuscript, right? Now, this manuscript has a lot of work that has not been published yet, right? So that is why this editor has to maintain confidentiality and data protection, right? Because this is some data that should not be leaked, right? We don't want some other, like before, some of these journals actually have revisions that go on for 1 year, 2 year, right? So in those 2 years, we don't want that the similar idea leaks out to some other group who does some kind of work that is similar to ours, and that gets published in some other journal, so that this will now not be eligible at all for publication, because now it is a copied thing, right? It has been scooped, the work has been scooped. So that is why these editors should maintain confidentiality and data protection. That is first and foremost. Also because they are at that position, um, which they essentially have to maintain professionalism, right? It cannot be like, okay, this author, this corresponding author is a friend of mine, so okay, I will just pass it on to for review, right? It is their paper, I will pass it on for review. So that kind of thing should not be there, right? Maybe this friend of theirs works on say mycobacterium, and this person is an editor in AACR, which is a cancer journal, right? That is not what should happen, right? People who are reading that journal essentially look for papers that are on cancer research. So they will not be, interested in a mycobacterium research, and also that mycobacterium research will not gain the correct audience, right? So that will not have citations. The journal impact factor might differ, or it also might suffer, right? So that is why these are the three qualities, one of the a few, like three of the many qualities that journal editors should actually have as their role, right? Then question number two, the image given here represents an example of figure prepared for a research paper, right? So this is a figure that has been prepared for a research paper. Here, the two images, that is A and B, are connected with dotted lines and a square in figure A. Which of the following options accurately describes the most likely explanation for a representation? First is the two images A and B are from two different sources, and the inset likely was drawn to highlight the similarity in the pattern of granular structures. Right? This is option A. The option B is inset identifies the actual size of the object when printed on the journal. Option C is image on the right is likely a higher magnification view of the inset shown on the left image. Or D, that is all of these. I think it is more of a general question. You might have, if you have studied research papers, you might have come across such figures, right, in which insets are basically drawn. So that essentially looks like this. So what does it mean? Which of these options is actually correct? Okay. So the option that is actually correct is option number C, right? So the image on the right side, this one, that is B, is a higher magnification view of this image on the left, right? So if we want to closely look at it, right? Yeah. Uh, this is an inset of this, right? That is why a square has been drawn over here that basically represents that this is the area that we are magnifying, right? And after that, there has been a magnification that has been done, and this is what this magnified view looks like, right? So the authors might be trying to show that, okay, you can look over here, although it is not very clear, but over here they might be pointing out to these magenta colored dots present inside the cell body, something like that, right? Inside the nucleus, it is present. Then outside the nucleus, also, there is some other kind of stain that we can see. Maybe they are trying to show that something inside the nucleus or outside the nucleus, and what exactly we are trying to see, that will be more clear if there was a legend in this picture, which we will talk about later. Okay. So option C over here is the correct answer. You will surely have, I think, a similar question this year also, because last year's this is 2022 assessment, even in sorry 2023 assessment. Even in 2024 assessment, we had a similar question. We will come to that as well. I have not gone through this year's assessment, but you might have a similar question. Okay. Question number 3. Writing the discussion section is the most challenging part of a research paper. Okay, some of the pointers that are often used to draft the discussion sections are given below, not necessarily in the order of execution. Identify the option that correctly orders these steps. Okay, so these steps are labeled as MNOP. M is define the significance of your discovery and explain its meaning. N is contrast and compare the findings you obtained with those of the other research that has been published. O is explain the significance of your work by discussing its applications, recommendations, and implications. And P is describe the study's assumptions as well as its strengths and weaknesses. Right? So go through the question and pick out the correct order of basically these steps that have to be uh, kept in mind while writing the discussion of a research paper. Okay. I'll maybe give you 30 more seconds in case somebody is actually trying to think about it. Okay, so the answer for this one is first, that is M, N, P, and O, right? So this is the order of in which basically we look for how to write a discussion section, right? It is not necessarily the order in which we are writing, right? So uh, in order to draft it, first what we look for is the significance of the discovery and explaining its meaning, right? So why are we looking at this first? This will obviously go towards the end of the discussion section, right? But when we are drafting it, we ourselves know what is the study we have done, what is the observations we have obtained, and what is the result that we have seen, right? And we have gone through some literature during writing an introduction also, which suggests like what is the other kind of things that people have done. So what is the different thing that we have already done, right? So over here, what we first need to establish is to define the significance of your discovery, because we have some pointers from our introduction itself that okay, we know that this was what was missing, and this missing part we have answered over here, right? So that will become the significance of the discovery, right? And we can also explain why it was important, right? Because in introduction we might have posed similar kinds of questions that okay, although this has already been done in this field, this is the knowledge gap that remains. And why is finding this knowledge gap so important, right? We just have to answer the question that we have already posed earlier, right? So that is point one. Point number two is N. That is, contrast and compare the findings you obtained with those of other research that has been published. So, suppose you were working on a kind of neurodegenerative disease, right? And you find results that were, similar to what was reported in maybe some other model or some other form of neurodegenerative disease, right? So you will compare that, that paper had also said that this might be possible. Over here, we have checked it and we have found out that yes, this is the case, this is possible, right? So you will compare and you will cite other papers. This is the question they had asked. This is the result they had got. The result that we have got is also very similar to theirs. So this is just validating our theory that this is actually what it is. Or you might have, come up with a solution for something that was an open question earlier, right? Somebody might have seen some particular kind of granule and reported it because they have seen it, but they might not have known what that granule is, right? So you will just say that, okay, now once we also saw those similar kind of granules that this particular group had seen earlier, what we did was we tried to isolate whatever was we tried to untangle the proteins in that granule, right? How did we untangle it? And after that, we were able to, point out via some histochemistry, some pull down, we were able to point out that, okay, these are the components of these granules. So now we know that that paper, the granules that they had also reported, they had these components, right? Because we have found out that component. So that is what we are going to do, right? Sometimes what might happen is that there might have been some report and what you are reporting might not overlay, or it might not abide by what has been said earlier, right? In that case also, you have to list those kinds of reports also that, I was looking at this enzyme, and earlier it has been reported that this enzyme has a protective role in this particular disease. But I did a longitudinal study, and what I am seeing is that it might have a protective role in the initial ages, but over time, what happens is it becomes a very, harmful, it contributes to formation of very harmful residues, etc. Right? So even if whatever you are getting is contrasting with what has already been reported, you do need to include those reports also, right? Because you cannot be biased about research or biased about science, right? You have to, whoever is reading your paper should be aware of the fact that, okay, these are also kinds of reports that exist. But in this report, this is what they have said, right? But they are also acknowledging that there are people who have done research. Maybe their research parameters were different. Maybe their animal model was different. Maybe the circumstances under which the research was done, maybe that brings upon a change in how the enzyme activity is being perceived, right? So that is for readers to figure out, right? But we have to give them the complete information, right? Then P, that is describe the study's assumptions as well as its strengths and weaknesses, right? So what we have to do is that, okay, this like everything that we have reported, that we have observed, we have reported. There might be some reports that we have seen this and it might mean this, right? So you might not have tested that hypothesis. You might have observed something, and based on other papers or based on other findings from your research group, from other research groups, you might assume that since this is known and this is what we are seeing, it might be that this particular pathway is playing a role in this particular neurodegenerative disorder, right? So over here comes an assumption. You might not have tested that this particular pathway is playing a role or not, right? But you are assuming this, right? So along with this, you have to give a disclaimer about what is the assumption of the paper, what are the strengths of the paper, what are the weaknesses. So, for instance, I can say that, okay, I am very sure that the protein that we have characterized this granules that were present very nicely because we have, isolated the proteins, we have, uh, checked out what these proteins is. All of them fit whatever was we had imagined it was. There were one or two other proteins that we did not think of, which also came up as a result that these are also part of these granules. And we have done these three, four major techniques to, validate these results also. So that is the strength of our paper. We have characterized and we have validated it also very nicely, right? So even gold standard techniques for that we have done, and then we have done other techniques in order to validate that particular gold standard technique. But what could be the weaknesses? For example, I'm saying that this observation, I think, because this statement A we know, statement B we know, and these are the proteins that we are seeing in this particular neurodegenerative disease, the granules that are being formed, right? So we think that this is a pathway which might be involved in its formation, right? So what is the weakness? We have not tested for that pathway, right? So maybe that could also become your future prospect of the study, right? Then comes point number O, which says explain the significance of the work by discussing its applications, recommendations, and implications, right? So now you have to tell them that, okay, these were the techniques that were used, right? These kinds of similar techniques can be used for these other disorders also, right? We know that it will help in, deciphering better targets, drug targets for this particular disorder, etc. So you need to disclose all these things. So that is also a part of writing the discussion section, and this is the correct order in which it should be drafted, right? So coming to question number 4. Science journals frequently require authors to certify that the submitted manuscript is not a part of simultaneous submission. Here, simultaneous submission refers to the same set of authors simultaneously submitting to or more papers, each describing different work, or the same set of authors simultaneously submitting the same work or results to two or more journals, or simultaneous submission of almost identical findings to same journals by two independent groups, or any of these. So go through this. It is kind of a what you will call common sense in research, right? It is that kind of a question. So I hope you get it right. Okay, so the correct answer for this is that the same set of authors simultaneously submitting the same work or results to two or more journals is actually known as simultaneous submission, right? So over here, what they have asked is They some journals will require authors to certify submitted manuscript is not a part of simultaneous submission, right? So option C by itself is incorrect, right? Because what it says is simultaneous submission of almost identical findings to same journal by two independent groups. So if the groups are independent, how will I know that what is the research that is being submitted by that group? And if at all it is similar, how will I come to know about that, right? So that is out of the knowledge that a particular author has, right? So that can never qualify for simultaneous submission, right? Also, the same set of authors simultaneously submitting two or more papers, each describing different work, that can be done, right? It might be possible that I work in a lab which essentially works on a neurodegenerative disorder, but it also works on, a kind of brain cancer, right? Or it also works on stress biology because these are kind of overlapping terms. So I might be working with a few set of people on one project that has something to do with this particular neurodegenerative disorder or some aspect of this neurodegenerative disorder, and with another set of people in the same lab who are studying some other aspect of this particular neurodegenerative disorder, maybe some epigenetic involvement or some stress. Biology involvement in case of this particular disorder. So if both the works have been done and within a span of 1 month we want to actually submit both the works to a journal, it is possible that the authors for both the works are overlapping, right? But since these are two different studies, they are not referred to as simultaneous submission, right? Simultaneous submission is only if the same piece of work is being submitted by the same authors to two different places because they want to speed up that, okay, what if it gets accepted in one, sorry, rejected in one, so at least we will not lose time in submitting again from the beginning to the other one. That is something that should not be done, right? What if it gets accepted in both, right? You cannot withdraw the research at that time. Yeah. Then question number 5. Science journals often obtain publishing rights from authors before publishing the work of the authors in the journal. Which one of the following options is not true with regard to publishing rights transferred to the journal? Right? Is it preventing authors from republishing data figures on commercial websites or in books? Or preventing authors from republishing their data or figures in thesis and lab reports? Or preventing authors from publicly sharing and the published articles on their website and other similar public forum, or preventing authors from claiming copyright for the text and images after article has been published in the journal. Right, so go through the question, find out which of these options is not true. Okay, so the answer for this one is the first one, which is preventing authors from republishing data and figures on commercial websites or in the books, right? Because whenever rights are actually transferred to the journal, what we do need to do is uh, the same exact we need to take permission from these people to if we are using the exact same thing in our thesis or lab reports, right? So that is, sorry, I have not framed the sentence correctly, right? So if we are using it for an academic or teaching purposes, you do not really need to, uh, you know, take permission from these people. But if you are publishing it on the same work again for some commercial purpose, right, then that is not allowed, right? So that is why this publishing right is actually taken at the time of publishing such articles, right? So that it can prevent the republishing of these data and figures on commercial websites or in books. I think the question is not framed correctly. That is why I got confused. Which one of the following options is not true with regard to publishing rights transferred to the journals? I think the not should not have been over here, right? It is an incorrect question. So I'm really sorry for that. Maybe you can skip this one for now. Coming to question number 6, a group of students created a slide presentation to explain gluten, right? A protein naturally found in some grains. Examine the slide and select the appropriate critique from the options provided below. So this is a slide that has been prepared by these students for a particular presentation, right? So which of these is a correct critique for this slide? So too dark background image which does not add much information to the content, right? Too many colors for the text material do not add any value. The color contrast of the fonts with the background is hard to read, or all of these. Again, this question is something that is testing your general knowledge per se. It's not a bookish thing, something that you will read generally, right? But the concept has been taught to you, so that is why it is a more practical question that is being asked from you, right? So if you just look at the slide, you will be able to give the answer. Okay, so the answer is all of these, right? So why is it all of these? Yes, indeed, the background is very dark, right? Because of the background, the words, a lot of words are not legible, right? That is one thing. Apart from that, you know, for a person who doesn't know gluten at all, what it is, the background in at the back currently is not making any huge difference or huge sense right over here. Also, you can see that there are 4 pointers and all the pointers are in different colors, right? So, was that relevant to giving out that knowledge? Changing colors, right? No, it is actually not relevant. Instead, it is actually distracting because somebody might think, I don't know why is this particular line in this red color? Why is this particular line in green color, right? Because is it that this red has something that is, harmful, or it indicates something that is bold, right? Similarly, for green, is it the answer to some question that is being asked by that red color, something like that, right? Because these are the general uh, ways in which question answer or something that is bold or something that is response to something is actually done, right? So if it is not really a question answer, it is not really adding any other information, and you do not really have to highlight a point, you should not really use different colors in your text, right? So over here also, for instance, if you see, right, we can go back to a few slides, right? And all you can see is my questions are in bold, right? All my options are like in not in the bold, but they are in the same text format. They are also probably all in the same font size, right? But they are not bold. So this says that this is something that is a question and this is something that is an answer, right? Also, once I'm discussing the uh, uh, answer out of what of these options, right? I am always highlighting that, right? Or I can color code it. So that will draw your attention to this particular line and tell you that yes, this is what the answer is, right? So there should always be such a format that is set, right? And you should always follow that. Otherwise, it will be very distracting for people. Then, question number 7. The majority of the papers published in scientific journals contain a section titled Acknowledgements, in which the authors recognize the contributions of individuals or organizations. Which one of the following characteristics should not ideally be included in the acknowledgement section? So, if you remember in the previous session, also we have done a very similar question. So I hope that at least the people who had done that question will answer this correctly. So option A is the sponsor who funded the research project. Option B is an expert who read through the manuscript and provided critical input on the content. Option C is a colleague who shared some research reagents for the study being written. Or option B, which is a friend of an author who helped him financially during his elementary school days. Right? So, which one of the following is the correct option? Something that should not ideally be included in the acknowledgement section. Okay. So the answer for this one is the final one, that is friend of an author who helped him financially during his elementary school days, right? Because this is actually the acknowledgement section of a research article, right? So it should have people and organizations that are directly or at least uh, first handedly or second handedly involved in some way with the research, with funding the research, with providing some materials or some insights for the research, right? Be it reviewers, be it your guide, be it your friends who have given you some particular reagents, be it other professors in the department who have lended certain facilities, right? Or be it the people who have lended a particular cell line or a particular mouse model that you are using, right? So these are the things or the people or facilities, organizations, etc., that should be acknowledged in this acknowledgement section, right? Now, a friend of an author who had actually helped him financially during his elementary school days is also somebody who the author obviously might be indebted to for their entire life, right? But that doesn't mean that this is a person who they will include in the acknowledgement section, right? With that logic, the author will also include maybe a thank to their parents, the grandparents, the school teachers and the graduation post graduation teachers, etc., because without any of them that person might not have come to this particular level, right? But that is not what is done in acknowledgements in a research paper, right? So people who are directly involved with the research, or at least a little bit involved with the research, are the ones who are included, right? So this is an example of acknowledgements, sorry, for of acknowledgement from a Springer article, which says thank all of the peoples who, so this is a guideline from Springer, right? So thank all of the people who helped with research but did not qualify for authorship, right? So for instance, that friend who was lending you materials, right? Or there might have been somebody who was very briefly a part of your lab, who has helped in some part of the project. Maybe they have validated some specific mouse line for you, right? But they have not done an experiment per se that has gone into research or has contributed directly to the research, right? But nonetheless, they have helped you for your research. So even if they did not qualify for authorship, you should always acknowledge them in the acknowledgement section. Also, those who provided intellectual assistance, technical help or special equipment or materials, right? So for instance, your lab staff or manager, right? So these are people who take care of the general day-to-day reagents in the lab, or whether something is being ordered, how much of it has to be ordered, to talk to dealers, to talk to vendors that are providing these materials. So they are doing these kinds of helps, but that is actually helping you with your research, right? Because you are not having to do it. So even all of them you should always acknowledge in your paper, right? Also the funding body for research grants if applicable, right? So for instance, there was a research grant that was written and it was granted to me, right? And I'm working on that particular topic on which I had written this grant. So now if I'm publishing a paper, I should also, mention those grant funding agencies, that okay, these are the people who have financially supported my research, right? They have funded my research, and so they also deserve a mention in the acknowledgements, right? Whenever papers are submitted in the acknowledgement section, the funding agencies of all the authors are actually mentioned, right? So that it is um, uh, because they have actually funded either the research or the researchers, right? So it should always be mentioned. So question number 8, sorry, following is a statement with two sections that are denoted by blue and red font colors. Examine the statement and select the option that is true with regard to the guidelines followed in a research paper or a project. A research publication frequently adheres to standard format for citations, and such formats ensure ethical guidelines are adhered to correctly. Right? So, whether both the segment blue and red are correct, or both segments are incorrect, or segment shown in blue color is correct while the one in red is incorrect, or the opposite of that, that is whether the blue one is incorrect and the red one is correct. So, which of the options is actually correct? Okay. So the answer for this one is C, that is the blue statement is correct while the red statement is incorrect, right? So it is true that research publications frequently adhere to a standard format for citations, right? There might be some publications who say that we want the title of the paper, then we want the first author name, followed by et al. That means and others, right? Or there might be other journals that might say we want the first author name first, right? In that also we want their last name, then followed by their surname, followed by two other authors of the paper, right? Succeeding them. Then et al. If there are more than three authors, and then the title of the paper, then the DOI, right? There might be a third journal which would say that I want the title of the paper, the DOI of the paper. I don't want the author's name at all, right? There might be a fourth one who would say I want the first name of the author, then the last name of the author, and I want it for all the authors that are there in the paper, followed by the DOI. I don't want the title of the paper at all, right? So these are different formats of writing citations, right? And every publication has a different kind of format. So that would mean that if I have maybe 70 papers that I need to cite, I will have to follow, all the citation for all these papers in that particular, format, right? Now, what is the second statement? Such formats ensure ethical guidelines are adhered to correctly. Now, is that true? If I am writing something in a particular format, will that ensure ethical guidelines? No. Because what would be ethical about writing citations? That if I have used, say, for example, softwares for quantification such as Image or Fiji or MATLAB or for instance, BioRender for creation of some particular schematic, the ethical thing would be for me to actually cite these softwares, right? Or the original paper, original work that was introducing these softwares, right? So that would be ethical. But whether writing in a particular format will ensure that I am following these ethical things, no. So that is a separate thing altogether, right? This format, standard format, will not affect whether I am citing ethically or not, right? So the red one is actually incorrect. Then we come to question number 9, which is, which of the following is not an effective method for displaying the overall trend of a data set? Right? Is it bar diagrams or pie chart or tables or line diagram? So which of it is not an effective method? Right? Okay. So the answer over here is tables, right? So what will a bar diagram look like? For instance, you had sorry. For instance, what was your data? For instance, your data was that uh, this is a representation of a bar diagram. Maybe you are trying to quantify that you had a few mice models and you are trying to say that at what you have two types of models, right? And you have multiple mice in those two types. So, for instance, one is a lean fat diet model, right? LFD, lean fat diet, that is, it is getting a diet that is like it will not have much carbs or maybe fat, right? The other is a high fat diet. It will have a lot of fat and carbs, right? So there is a group of mice that you are feeding LF, this low fat diet, and the other that you are feeding high fat diet, right? So say you are feeding 5 mice a lean diet and 5 mice fatty diet, right? So you want to see that when you are making them, work or run on a treadmill or run on a wheel at a particular temperature, you would know which is higher, like if they were outside in heat and they were running, then which one of them will faint sooner, right? So what you are seeing is on your x-axis, you have these mice, right? Over here, you have time at which they will faint, right? And this is high fat, and this is suppose your standard deviation for this, and this is suppose your standard deviation for this, right? And what you can, so over here, you will see that LFD1 will faint at uh, after a lot of time versus high fat diet will faint in a very short time, right? That is one information you are getting out of it. Now for individual animals also, you might have seen such a plots. So there might be 5 dots that you see, which means that one particular animal fainted at around this time, other fainted at around this time, third and fourth fainted at around this time, and fifth one fainted at around this time, right? Similarly, there might be some dots that might represent the same in HFD, right? High fat diet, right? So it is giving a lot of information in a very little space, right? This much space. Then even if we draw a pie chart, right? A pie chart, it will say that if I draw two pie charts, right? It will say that 40% of the high fat diet mice fainted before 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, and 60% fainted before 10 minutes. right? And it is saying in lean fat diet, however, 10% of the mice fainted before 10 minutes, while 90% of them fainted after 10 minutes, right? So again, it's also giving you some kind of an information, right? It could be colored like 40% are fainting uh, before 10 minutes, right? Sorry, after 10 minutes, right? 60% have already fainted before that, right? Over here, 90% are fainting before 10 minutes, after 10 minutes, right? So this means that more number of low fat diet mice can actually survive at a higher temperature than high fat diet mice, right? That is what we were seeing over here also. Then in line diagram also you can draw it very nicely. So there is a table. There will be one line that will be showing when these mice fainted. One fainted at this time, one over here, one over here, one over here, and the last one over here. So this was lean fat diet. While there will be a different kind of a line that will be going, which will basically represent when these high fat diet mice fainted. One fainted over here, one fainted over here, third, fourth, and fifth. Right? So you can see all of them fainted much before the other group, right? So line diagram is also very representative. But if this information we had to give via a table, right? Then we will draw a table. It will contain 10, at least 10 rows, right? Because there are 10 mice, right? 5 low fat mice and 5 high fat diet mice. So it will contain at least 10 rows, and then it will contain at least 5 6 temperatures. So again 5 6 columns it will contain. So it will have to it will take much larger area, and the overall trend, like, will it be that much apparent? I don't know, right? Because a visual representation is making it much more apparent, much more simply, right? That might not be the case with the table. So that is the correct answer over here, right? I hope that you have understood this part. Sorry. Yes. So we come to question number 10, which says a group of students created a novel strain of an infectious fungus whose spores caused skin irritation when they came into contact with human skin. Students wish to determine if the newly developed virus was infectious. Based on your knowledge of research ethics, choose the committee that needs not be approached for permission to conduct proposed research. Right? Is it the Institutional Ethics Committee for Research involving human subjects, or Institutional Animal Ethics Committee, or Institutional Biosafety Committee, or none of these? So which of these committees need not be contacted when somebody is planning to do this kind of a research? So I think this is also very apparent that it will be actually Institute Animal Ethics Committee, right? Why? Because there is no animals that are being involved in this, right? There is no mouse strain that they want to test it on. There is no other guinea pig or rabbit or rat that they want to test it on, right? What they are doing is they have created an infectious strain of fungus, right? So this infectious strain of fungus, it will have to they will have to have permission from a biosafety committee, right? Because the correct biosafety level facility should be available in your institute. If you are working with an infectious or virulent strain of any virus, fungus, bacteria, etc., right? Also, since they can pose a hazard to the human, right? Because they caused irritation when they came into contact with human skin. So the Institutional Ethics Committee for Research involving human subjects should also be kept in the loop, right? This is another committee whose permission will be required for this kind of a study. Then we come to question number 11, which is which of the following should not be given a result section? In a result section. Is it inference of the results, or observations or discussion about observations or implications of the data or statement about what has been found, right? So which of these should not be given in result section? Is it A, B, and C, or C, D, and E, or B, D, and E, or A, C, and D? So you can have a look briefly at this question. So if you remember last week's discussion, you will be able to answer this very nicely, right, and correctly. So actually, the ones that should not be given in the result section is A, C, and D, right? So inference of the results, that is what the results mean, right? That doesn't have to be reported in the result section. The only two things that need to be reported in a result section is what is the observation that you are seeing and what has been found, right? What does it mean? What is it? How? Whether you need to discuss about the what it is, what has been seen earlier, what are you seeing right now, or what is going to be the implication of what you are seeing. All this is not required in the result section, right? There's a separate section which is known as discussion that involves all these three, right? Then question number 12, which is which of the following is an incorrect statement? The subheadings should be used to separate the results of different experiments. Results should be presented in the order in which the experiments were performed. Data should not be duplicated or repeated in text, tables, and figures. Or results or statistical analysis should be included in text. So, which out of these is incorrect? Okay. So the answer for this one is that the results should actually not be presented in the order in which the experiments were performed, right? So this is an incorrect statement that it should be presented in that order. It should ideally not be done in that way, right? What should actually be done is, for instance, you were, trying to characterize a particular kind of bacteria, right? So you did a particular experiment for that, and then you realize that, okay, I have the answer for this one, but now I think I also need to check, in order to give it into publication, I need to do this particular set of experiment also. So that then that was also done. Then once it was given for publication, the reviewer asked, okay, wait, how did you know that this is actually a bacteria or not? Right? So what they did was they did a sequencing maybe to validate that, okay, this is this bacteria that we are talking about. So now that experiment had been done last, but once it was actually done, there will be a line that will be given earlier, or it might be included ahead in that paper to the actual data also, because it is just validating what this line is, right? So it is not necessarily necessary that the order in which it was done will actually become the order of your paper, right? Because your paper is like a story, right? You need to convey it like a story. You do not need to convey it in the way that you have worked for it, right? You need to convey it in a way that the audience will be convinced, or other people who are reading your research will be convinced that yes, what you are saying, like this is the question you started with, this is what you did to answer your objectives, right? And this is the outcome you are getting. And yes, I think it has some potential in it. This research work has some potential in it, right? So it should be presented in an orderly fashion, not in a fashion that you have actually done the experiments. It might be possible that I wanted to, validate the line first, but I did not have the primers that were required to do that. So by the time I had ordered the primers, I actually did the second set of experiments first because I had reagents available for them. That doesn't mean that I will put the second set of experiments first in my paper, right? So that is not how it should be done. Then question number 30. Result section should include a short paragraph of conclusion which talks about the key findings, a table showing a summary of all the statistical analysis performed, inference of data and its possible implications for future research, or none of these. So again, we are talking about a research section. We have just discussed a while back what it should or should not include, right? This is an extrapolation from that question. I hope you have the answer already. So it is a short paragraph of conclusion which talks about the key findings, right? So uh, let us go through the other ones, okay? So a table showing summary of all the statistical analysis performed. This will go in the method section, right? Inference of data and its possible implications for future research is something that is going to go in discussion. While short paragraph of conclusion which talks about the key findings. This can be included in the research section, right? So what you are actually essentially saying over here is that I have seen this and this and this and this. While concluding your research section, you will just say that, okay, from this much, what we have, what is the knowledge that we have is that this is a particular strain that we are talking about. We have validated this strain. We have performed these particular transcriptional analysis. They showed a certain result, which was validated by protein checking protein level differences. Also, we did some study some modifications that are present in these proteins, and this was the result that was obtained. Right. So it is a short conclusion which is summarizing the key findings that you have already talked about. Right. You're not saying what does it mean. You are just concluding that information. Then question number 14. Which of these statements is true with regard to non-textual elements in your research, in your research paper? Each non-textual element might have a caption consisting of number and a title. The number of figures, tables, graphs, etc. in text should explicitly reference the item. If a non-textual element is adapted from some existing work, the said work should be cited, or all of these. Okay, so the answer to this one also is all of these, right? So what is a non-textual element? It can be a table, it can be a pie chart, it can be a diagram, it can be some representative image, it can be some, suggested pathway, etc., right? So yes, all non-textual elements must have captions consisting of number and title, right? So it should be written figure 1 legend, figure 2 legend, whatever, right? Table 1, table 2, it should always have that, right? So that it can be referenced nicely. The number of figure tables or graphs etc in the text should explicitly reference the item. So because you have given non-textual elements, and while writing also you will say as seen in figure 1, this is this has happened, right? This transcript is going up, this transcript is going down. As seen in table, we have listed the materials that were used for this study in table 1, right? So you should reference it nicely, right? If a non-textual element is adapted from some existing work, the said work should be cited. So this is very commonly done in case of review papers, for example, right? So the review paper will probably be something that you are talking about some research topic, and you are taking up multiple original researches on that topic, or some older reviews also on that topic, and you are trying to summarize what is known in the field, right? So you might take some particular, schematic from some particular paper, and you might adapt that to state what is the conclusion for your review also. So in that case you should always cite that article also, right? That is what is written. So, why are figures and tables used in a research paper? Is it to enhance the contrast of the paper? Or research papers without display elements are not accepted in reputed journals? Or they are the quickest way to communicate large amounts of complex information that would be complicated to explain in a text? Or all of these? Now, I think, these options might be conflicting for a few people at least. Okay. So the answer for this one is option number C, right? So figures and tables are not present to enhance contrast of the paper or because articles will not be accepted without, figures and articles, right? It is actually included because it is a quickest way to communicate large amounts of complex information that would be complicated to explain in textual format, right? Then we come to question number 16, which is which one of these are a part of the ethics in image processing for publications, right? So there was some examples about image processing that were given to you by Sir in this week's lectures also. So the figures must maintain their original proportions. The specific features within an image may be enhanced, obscured, moved, removed, or introduced. Lanes of gels must not be spliced together. One particular part of image should not be focused at while discussing. So, which of these are a part of ethics in image processing? I think all of these were discussed in that lecture and the next lecture in which Sir was discussing the image processing. Okay. So the first one is actually it was I think the first example that was given to you in which that mouse was shown and that it should always maintain the original proportions whenever you are resizing images, right? You should not either crop it from one end or the other end or resize it from one either the length or the breadth. That is not what should be done, right? In the same lecture it was told to you that the images should not be it can be enhanced but it should evenly be enhanced, right? It should never be obscured or moved or removed, right? That should never be done, that a part of the image is removed, a part of the image is obscured. That should never be done, right? Lanes of a gel must not be spliced together. Now that example was also given to you in the lectures that it can be possible that you are splicing together two lanes of a gel, but you should always separate it with a line so that it is apparent to the reader that this is what you have done. So if you give that disclaimer that this is what has been done, this is a separate one, this is a separate one, that is why I am drawing a line in the middle, you can do it, right? One particular part of image should not be focused at while discussing. That is not true, right? Sometimes we will mark some particular part with a box or a arrow or an asterisk because we want to discuss that particular part in an image, right? So that is perfectly fine. Then we come to question number 17, which is which of these points should be kept in mind while citing papers? We should cite papers only relevant to our results obtained, or to be cited should be old classic papers that worked on the area for a first few decades, or the studies cited should strongly be related to your research question, or all of these. Okay. So, the correct answer is C. That is, the studies that we are citing should be strongly related to a research question, right? Whether they are supporting the result that we have obtained or they are not supporting the result that we have obtained, right? Which is why A is incorrect. And it should generally the citations that are done should be recent ones, right? People who are recently working on that area or that kind of work is being done by these people. So it should generally be recent citations. Also, along with that, people who first had that idea, who first viewed that model, who first made that model, etc. That should also be done, but it should not be old papers that should be cited, right? The latest papers should be actually cited. Question number 18. Which of these should be included in a discussion section? Right? Is it restating the results or the take home message or new results that were earlier not discussed in the paper or introduction to the research question? Now, the options for this question are relatively simple, right? So, which one should not be, sorry, should be included in a discussion section? So it is actually going to be this, which is a take home message, right? So over here, what you are going to do is you are going to discuss whatever results you have obtained. You are going to tell why it is important, what is the relevance of these, what is the implication of your finding, what are the other kinds of studies that are talking about it, what is the conclusion, final derivation out of this research that you get, which is a take home message, right? You will not restate the results that has already been done in the conclusion of the results, right? Then all the results that had to be introduced should have been done in the results section itself. There will not be any new results that will be discussed over here in this section. And the introduction to research question was to be done in the introduction section itself, right? Not in the discussion section. Then we come to question number 19, which is what is not done in a macro structure revision, right? It is a revision of organization or revision of sentence structure or revision of content or revision of flow. So which one of this cannot be done in a macro structure revision? So as the name suggests, macro structure revision means something that is on a bigger level, revision that is on a bigger level, right? So what cannot be done? The revision of sentence structure, right? That will be a very micro structure revision, right? Revision of organization, how this could be done at a very early stage of your manuscript, right? Wherein you have just written your manuscript, the first draft you have written, and you have shown it to somebody in your lab or your PI or the other author in your paper, and they have suggested that I don't think that this result that is put at the correct place. I think this result should be the first result in your paper. This first one should go maybe on number 3. Accordingly, you should revise the structure of your paper, right? So those are revision of organizations, revision of the content. That is, if this particular thing that I had written on this particular result that I had put on number 3, where it goes to number 1, then the flow of the paper will also change, right? So revision of the flow, the content, the organization, all that is called macro structure revision, right? It could be done in the first few drafts of your manuscripts. Then, when Dash has a financial or personal interest of belief that could affect his, her, or their objectivity or inappropriately influence his or her actions, a potential conflict of interest exists. When author or company or reviewer or all of these. So you might have viewed that there is something that is known as conflict of declaration of conflict or conflict of interest. This is also one small section in a paper that is always given, right? So that is generally for any of these, whether it is for the reviewer of the paper or the company or the author, right? It should always, it can be for either of them, the conflict of interest, right? because a company might be funding a particular author for a particular kind of drug that they are going to commercialize, right? So it is a conflict of interest both for the company and the author, right? Similarly, a reviewer might be a part of a particular company that is also working on some commercial drug that is related to a research that the person is also reviewing, or a similar kind of work that person is reviewing. So he also has to, or she also has to declare that actually, I am also working in a company that I am also a part of a, board members in a company that are also working on similar kind of things. So I need to declare that okay, I am not trying to sabotage this paper, personally, or I don't have anything to gain from this paper personally. I what the gain is coming from that company, something like that, right? So that is why it is declared. Then question number 21 is researchers while writing manuscripts often use the abbreviation et al. It means, I just said it a few slides ago, at the end, or extra alternate, or and others, or and alternatively. So, if you were attentive, if you were listening, even if you did not know before today, I had mentioned it a few slides ago, maybe half an hour ago, maybe. Yeah. So the answer is and others. So whenever we are writing using this observation, if we have like six people that are authoring a paper, right? So whoever's name is coming first, or first three names we are writing, and we are writing comma et al. So this that means Ankita and Kavi Kumar and Arveen et al. Or just Ankita et al. Right? So that means Ankita and others, or Ankita, Kavi, Arveen and others, right? So that is what it will mean. Then question number 22. Research ethics do not include which of these? Honesty or integrity or subjectivity or objectivity? This is a very, philosophical type of question. It is okay if you are not knowing this. We will discuss it, right? So the answer to this one is subjectivity. So research ethics, you have to have a very solid integrity. That is first and foremost. You have to be objective about what you are trying to do, right? And whether it is on the right path. You have to be honest about whether you are citing correctly, whether you have taken the permissions correctly, right? Whether you have performed the correct statistical analysis, etc. Right? But subjectivity is something that is not a part of research ethics, at least, right? Then we come to question number 23, which is similar to the one we have looked at, the gluten one, right? So, given below is a sample slide prepared for a seminar on how mountains are naturally formed. Which among the following option identify the valid critique? Option A, that is text all over the image does not help. Option B, that is choice of color of the text is not appropriate and is not readable. Option number C, that is font size of the few statements is very small and are difficult to read. Or option D, that is all of these. Right. So as I said, we have discussed a very similar question earlier today, the gluten question. The answer for this one is also all of these. You can see that there are some places such as over here wherein having written anything is not that nice, right? Because it is very hard to read actually, right? So it is not very legible. Over here, mountains, I have to strain my eyes a lot to actually make out that this word is mountain, this word is to, right? This word is collide, right? Over here, similarly, at one go, I can't really read it. I have to put a lot of strain to actually find out that this, what is this statement? As the plates continue to collide, mountains will get taller and taller, right? So that is not very easily legible, right? Similarly, you can see that this is written in a very big format. This is written in a very tiny format. Again, the colors of images, the colors of fonts is not really helping, helping you read very nicely. Over here, asthenosphere, lithosphere, continental crust are still in colors that we can figure out what is written, right? Still, all of them are in different colors. Even if all of them were in black, it would have still been visible, right? There is no logic to it being in different colors, but at least they are legible. Over here, this is not even legible. This is not even legible, right? So all of these are actually correct critiques for or valid critiques for this particular slide. Then question number 24. When compiling the results section of a research publication, the authors are not required to conform to arranging the results in a logical order or chronological order of experiments as they were done, or order of importance of the findings, or writing the findings in the past tense. So which one don't the authors do not have to do? Okay. So the authors are not required to conform to basically arranging chronological order of experiments as they were done, right? It should actually be present in a logical order, not in the way that it was performed, but in a way that it will make sense to the readers, right? So it should be arranged in a logical order, not a chronological order. Also, the importance of findings should, be present, and they should always write the findings in the past tense. So all these are true. Only the option B is something that is not true, right? Then question number 25. Presented in an is an illustrative image featured in a scientific publication depicting two images identified as A and B. Which of the following options accurately identifies the most probable rationale for the depiction? Right? This is image A and this is image B. Yeah. Image B provides the accurate dimensions of the item when it is printed in the journal. Image A and B originate from distinct sources. Image B is most probably an enlarged version of the insect seen in image A, or all of these. So since we have also done a similar question to this one before, I hope you know that the option is option number C. That is B is why does it say it is most probably an enlarged version of insect that is seen in image A? Because over here, there is no dotted line that is connecting the two images, right? When a dotted line is connecting the two images, then you are definitely sure that yes, this one is an inset of this one, right? But sometimes people forget to do that, right? But they have marked it. Maybe they had mentioned it in the legend, which we don't have over here. That maybe the red B is the red square that has been depicted in A that is being showed in B over here. They might have mentioned it in the legend itself, right? Why are we saying that it is most probably an enlarged version of the inset seen in image A? Over here, if you see, there are these two. One is a light colored, segment. The other is a dark colored segment, which is seen over here. Then there's empty space over here, which is also seen here. Then there are two vacuoles that are coming over here, a part of this vacuole and this entire vacuole, which are also seen over here, right? So you can see that it is the same region, right? Whether it has been just cropped, this image has just been cropped, or whether this is actually a magnified view taken at a different objective in the lens that is to be found out later. Question number 26. The majority of journals require authors to provide explicit content that their manuscript complies with the journal's guidelines and is devoid of any instances of unethical practices. Which one of the following options can be considered as unethical practice? Is it inclusion of content from own previous research article without proper reference, or not disclosing the conflict of interest, or reuse of text from another research group published article without any citation, or all of these? So you have already studied about ethics in writing or paper writing, right? From that, you would, I think, know by now that the answer for this is all of these. So if even if it is your work that you are including from a previous research article, you need to still reference it, right? So you need to cite even your work if you are mentioning that in your current article, right? Because you have already mentioned it in a previous article that has gone into publication, the publication rights are not with you, right? It is with the journal. So you need to cite it, right? Not disclosing the conflict of interest is unethical. Yes, if for instance I'm working on a drug and I have also filed a patent for that particular drug, right? I need to disclose that when I am writing a paper for it, right? Then reuse of text from another research group published article without any citation, that is like point 101. What is ethics? That whenever you are taking a reference from some other paper, you need to cite it, right? So all of these is the correct answer here. Then question number 27. While submitting a research article to a journal, the declaration of competing interests refers to either whether or more than one group is working on an identical research problem, or whether research group or work submitted was funded by a commercial firm, whether the corresponding author is also a PhD student, or whether the authors are affiliated with more than one organization other than their home country. Which one of these will come in declaration of competing interests? Okay. So option number B, which says whether the research work was submitted by which is submitted was funded by a commercial firm, right? So if, for example, again, you are working on a drug and your research is being funded by some drug company, some pharma company, right? So you need to declare that, because whatever you are finding, that research is not just for the research community to or the research to go forward. It is also because you want to support the maybe the future commercialization of a particular drug, right? So you need to always declare that. So the author must declare if the work being submitted is protected by patent or IPR or not, and the other options that are given over here are irrelevant, right? Then question number 28. There are specific guidelines on authorship and acknowledgement for manuscript submission to journals. Which one of the following options represent acknowledgement? Right? So which one of these do you think is talking about acknowledgement? Conceived and supervised the work but did not carry out the work. Carried out the experiments and wrote the results section of the paper but did not conceive the work. A senior professor and experts in the field and provided a reagent to the study, or none of these. So which one do you think out of all these should come under acknowledgement, or whether none of these should come under acknowledgement, right? So the answer is option number C, that is a senior professor and an expert in the field, and who basically provided a reagent to the study, right? For example, you are working on a certain kind of viral particle, and a particular person who had first discovered that viral particle has helped you in some way, or has given you a few insights, or they had lent you that particular viral particle, right? But they are not directly involved in the research per se, right? There are some discussions you have done with them, but they are not a part of the research, or they are not supervising the work or anything, right? So, but they should be acknowledged because there is some time that they have spent, there is some knowledge that they have shared, and maybe some resources also that they have shared. So, mere sharing of reagents does not qualify for authorship, and hence, normally, the help is acknowledged, right? So, it is a part of the acknowledgement section. Then we come to question number 29, which says, what is primary responsibility of the editor of a scientific journal? Right? Is it to conduct experiments to validate the findings submitted in research articles, or to market the journal to increase its readership and impact factor, or to ensure that the submitted manuscripts comply with the ethical standards and publication guidelines, or design the layout and graphics for journals publication? So, what do you think is the primary responsibility of editor of a scientific journal? Right? Maybe all of them might be responsibilities. Maybe a few might be that person's responsibility. But which one do you think is the most important responsibility of the editor of a scientific journal? Right? So, the most important responsibility out of the ones that are listed over here, which is the primary responsibility of the editor of a scientific journal, should actually be to ensure that submitted manuscripts comply with ethical standards and publication guidelines, right? So, for instance, the authors have, acknowledged the funding agencies. They have correctly cited papers, right? They have uh, uh, cited their own research if they are referring to it anywhere in this current paper, right? Or if the publication, if this particular scientific journal says that the the main manuscript should not exceed maybe 10,000 words. So the word limit has been kept in mind. It has not definitely not exceeded 10,000 words. Or if it says that it should have five-figure panels, right? So it should have five-figure panels. It should not have less or more than that. So these are the primary responsibilities of the editor, right? Then we come to question number 30, which is, which one of the following illustration options may not be helpful for illustrating the overall pattern when demonstrating and interpreting huge data sets? Now, I had drawn and shown it to you, so I hope you remember it. It is A, bar diagrams, B, line diagrams, C, tables, or D, scatter diagram. Right. So again, we had discussed it only a while back. The answer is tables, right? I had drawn, I had given you example, and I had shown that to you. From this, you will also be understanding that you are seeing some repeated questions. So they might not be the exact same question. The language of the question might have changed, but the rationale or the logic behind it is the same, right? So these are questions actually from different years. So even this year, you might have some similar questions, right? If you don't have it currently, you might have it in your exams. That is what I was talking about in the beginning of the session also, right? Then we come to question number 31, which says, a team of students developed a unique variant of infectious bacteria that produces skin irritation upon contact with animal skin. The student aimed to ascertain the ability of the certainly developed bacteria to infect the animal skin. Based on your understanding of the research ethics, identify the committee that need not provide an approval for to perform the proposed study of their institute. Uh, yeah. A is Ethics Committee for Research Involving Human Subjects, B is Animal Ethics Committee, and C is Biosafety Committee, or D, that is none of these. So it is very slightly different from the option that we were talking about earlier, right? Over there, what had been talked about, an infectious strain of fungi, which was irritating human skin, right? Instead of that, over here we have infectious bacterium, which is irritating. It is an irritant for the animal skin, right? So instead of ethics in for research involving human subjects, now the committee that needs to be talked to or taken permission from is the Animal Ethics Committee along with the Biosafety Committee, because it is a virulent or infectious strain of bacterium, right? So this is a committee which these students need not take the approval from, right? Because they are not working with the human subjects and their strain doesn't bother the human subjects, right? So since the study requires use of suspected bacteria, pathogen, and animal samples, the clearance from Ethics Committee for Research on Animals and Biosafety Committee would be required, right? Then we come to question number 32. I think this is the final question for the day. So the research manuscripts submitted for publication are often sent by journals for peer review. Here the term peer review refers to a process in which unbiased experts in field assess the technical and scientific quality of submitted manuscript, or an approach in which paid professionals revise the document to ensure correct language use and grammar, or an approach in which individual experts validate individual contributors of writers and verify their authorship, or a process in which experts rank the submission for its societal impact. So, which one of these is actually going to be the correct answer? Yeah. So the term peer review, it actually refers to a process in which unbiased experts in the field assess the technical and scientific quality of submitted manuscript, right? All others are untrue, right? They are not paid professionals. They will not revise the documents. They will find out these unbiased experts. They will question whatever research you have done. If there is not enough evidence to support some statement that you are making, they will fish for that evidence. They will ask you why you have not done so and so experiment to support that particular statement, or if you can do that experiment, right? So they are not going to correct the language and grammar for you. They are not going to correct or revise your document. They will definitely not validate individual contributions, right? That is something that, again, is an ethics thing. It should be declared by you correctly that this person was involved in this aspect of the study, this was involved in this aspect of the study. That should go correctly from your end itself. Also, it is not a process in which the experts will rank the submission for its societal impact, right? So, option A is actually the correct option. So as I said, that was the last question for the day. So thank you so much for your time. Yeah, yes. Um, yeah, we will just end the session. Let me stop sharing my screen. Yeah. Um, okay, so was there any doubt in today's session or in the sessions in general? If yes, maybe you can raise your hands. Maybe you can ask over here. If not, that will be the final weekly session from my end. We might have one final, overall discussion session for the same. We still do not know when it has to be scheduled because we have not heard from NPTEL regarding that. So that has a separate schedule. They ask us to schedule it once I think the 8-week courses are also getting over. So currently the schedules discussion or interaction sessions for this particular subject are over. We might have one final session, as I said. I don't know when it will be. Um, until then, if you have any problem, uh, right now I don't think you do because none of you are actually interacting. If you do have any problem, you can always keep writing on the discussion forum so that the NPTEL team or the other TA for the course, Dr. Rashmi Parihar, she can, maybe solve problems over there. Uh, or you can reach out to me as well. I will also help in solving if there is any problem that is there, right? So I think with that said, if there's no other problem, we'll just stop the session.